Doing well.
You're good.
All right. Good afternoon. This is a meeting of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Today is Monday, November 27th. And our first item of business today is hearing consideration of a new CP&C for a company called Reliatran.
Yes, everything appears to be good, she's good to go.
Okay, so she's met all the requirements for insurance and vehicle inspection and all that.
Yes.
Okay. Is Ms. Burkett here?
Yes, I am.
Come, Ms. Burkett, if you could, please come join us. This is your opportunity for 5 minutes of fame. Tell us what you're doing.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlina Burkett. I am a registered nurse, and it has been my personal experience with family members and the patients that I see that we have an issue with transportation to and from medical appointments, dialysis appointments, cancer center appointments, physical therapy. It was to the misfortune of my grandfather, who was in an industrial accident where his hands were burned. He was burned down to his skull, requiring extensive therapies and surgeries and transportation back and forth to Spain rehab. Unfortunately, this occurred during COVID. So the situations that surrounded that situation caused him to be quarantined and not be able to go back and forth to those therapies. Unfortunately, shortly after, my grandfather perished, but it had instilled in me a need, a want and a need to help this situation. I also worked at University of Alabama at Birmingham Hospital. I worked at St. Vincent's, and I currently do still work there as a medical surgical nurse. And I see where patients are waiting to be discharged to therapy, to long-term care, to skilled nursing facilities, and it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning waiting on lifeguard and regional paramedic services that are able to transport stretchers and wheelchairs. So this is a passion of mine, both personally and professionally. I believe that the city and the counties that surround us could benefit from extra transportation services that will be reliable and affordable to our community, thus preventing the reoccurrence of emergency room visits, which we know that if you go to an emergency room, you're probably going to be waiting about 5 to 6, 7 hours for something that could have been prevented by going to your primary care physician. So like I said, I am a practicing nurse, but this is a passion of mine to aid the problem that we have in the city and the county surrounding us. So I have a double wheelchair van that I am willing to start off with to transport patients to dialysis appointments, to therapies, to wound care appointments, even to the airport, because a lot of people who have wheelchairs aren't able to get to and from just even making personal errands. And I believe that I can help the community out with being a resource for that. I think that's 5 minutes.
Yeah, very good. Our committee hears these types of applications for what we call certificate of public necessity and convenience. We do have some technical requirements that city code requires, like insurance and vehicle inspection and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But for the most part, when they come through committee, all of that has been checked off on, to be honest with you, this is more of a formality than anything else. But we do like to, most of the time, these are, folks like yourself who are new business entities, and so we like to give folks a opportunity to tell us a little bit about what you're doing. I will say that there's definitely a need in the city of Birmingham for affordable wheelchair accessible vehicles in particular. So glad to hear that you have that type of vehicle And Counselor Tate, do you have any
No
questions?
questions. I'm glad to see that, your service and, your heart. You got a passion for this, but you did answer the question because I was going to ask you, when you said dialysis patient, that you have wheelchair accessibility.
Yes.
So thank you for that as well.
All right. So that's pretty much it. Counselor Tate would,
I make a motion that we recommend this item to go to the full council for a vote.
all right. Second, and so that item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
This will be on the council agenda likely in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Appreciate you coming by. All right, next up we have Colin Alexander for surface treatment on State Road 269 from Birmingham city limits to Old Mulga Loop Road.
Good afternoon, committee. My
Hi,
name is
Colin.
Colin Alexander. I serve as senior planner with the Birmingham Department of Transportation. Before you is a standard project resolution from AlDOT. We get these on a regular basis whenever AlDOT does a project on one of their right-of-ways. It's both a notice to us that the project is going to happen if it's within our jurisdiction, but also a way for them to tick off boxes to apply for federal funds if they needed additional federal funding. So no funding commitment from the city on either of these next two resolutions, just a standard resolution. The first project is for surface treatment on State Route 269. This is better known as Birmingport Road, running from the Birmingham city limits just north of the old Inslee Steel site and running to Old Mulga Loop Roads. This will be within the Sherman Heights neighborhood and also passing the Oak Ridge neighborhood as well. So pretty straightforward road maintenance project for LDOT.
So is it a resurfacing?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess they use the terminology surface treatment, but if it's, yeah.
They have different, depending on what type of treatment they're going with, they have different terminology. But my understanding from looking at the plans is that it's a resurfacing project.
Okay. I will admit that I didn't read the 100 pages of engineering documents. All right. So does this need a recommendation
Yes.
from the committee?
I have no questions. I'm sure that the people in District 9 would be happy and pleased that this is happening. But I make a motion that we recommend this item to go to the full council for a vote.
All right, I'll second that, so that motion passes. Next up, we have sign replacement on I-459 from I-2059 to I-59.
Yes, that is correct. So this is another one of these project resolutions from AlDOT. So this project is going to be replacing all of the interstate directional signage on I-459, the entire way from exit 0 at the 59 interchange heading towards Tuscaloosa, all the way to the I-59 interchange in Trustful.
Wow.
So it's a pretty straightforward project, but we're just going to go in and update. This is replacing existing signage, so this is not adding any new signage. It's not anything like that.
Interesting, yeah. It's a lot of signage. And I noticed I did scroll through and see all the diagrams of the signs, and including all of the signage on the gantries above the road. And if I recall correctly, I think some of that signage there's something going on with the lettering, and part of the lettering is hard to read because it's non-reflective now.
Yes, especially at night. So this will be all standard to interstate highway standards currently.
Okay. Okay. Do they have a timeline for the project?
Not that they've made us aware of now.
I guess portions of this would be in the city of Birmingham,
That's
correct?
correct, and that's why it's coming to us for notice. I-459 goes in and out of various jurisdictions, including Birmingham.
Okay. Side note, so I recently learned that Aldot has an app. I don't know if it's fully deployed yet. It's called Algo Traffic.
Yes.
So it's an app that I guess in its intent is to help road users be aware of traffic conditions.
That's correct. I believe it's been live for a couple of years now.
Okay.
But yes.
They ask for a login or a registration, and when I try and do that, I kind of get to a dead end.
That would be something we can try to bring up with Aldot, but
Yeah.
it's outside of our jurisdiction.
I'm just curious, but they do have traffic conditions, especially on the major highways in here. So, you know, I think about that relative to this project because the Algo Traffic app would be a place where that type of work would be indicated on their map. They have various symbols that you can tap on, and it'll tell you about traffic accidents or road construction work that's happening. So, you know, in the absence of a timeline, that would be a good resource for people to check in on to know whether or not that's happening. All right.
No
Replacing signs, exciting stuff.
Replacing signs, what about them lights that's out all over the place?
Wait. Before we go into that, let's handle this one.
I make a motion that we send this item to the full council for a vote.
All right, second, so that motion passes. All right, now under new and old business, we got some old business. Colin, can you tell us anything about the lighting project?
About interstate lighting?
Yeah,
So there's a couple of projects going on. So Aldot is working on a design for the lighting system on I-59 from the split to 459. So that would help us understand what we need to do to get that stretch of lighting on I-59 running through
So
the east
that's
side, going
northeast.
towards Trustful.
yeah,
So that is a project that Aldot is doing designs on, and then we would have to come back and look at how to implement those designs later on. We are in the early process of working with Aldot to do some assessments on some key corridors along the interstates, looking at, again, kind of not to the point of actually designing a solution, but telling us what needs to be done on a couple of key corridors. The corridors we're focusing on are the I-20 corridor from the split to Irondale, the I-2059 corridor from Bush Boulevard to city limits, and the I-65 corridor, both North Birmingham as well as downtown. So those are the four big corridors that we're getting ready to work with Aldot to do assessments on, but work has not started yet.
okay. There's your answer.
Well, not quite.
Okay,
Who's responsible for the lighting on the bridge that's going over Arkadelphia and also 269 going into Sherman? All of those lights are completely out.
So most of the time, and we are also working, Aldot has provided us with a map that I'm still delving through, but most of the lights are City of Birmingham responsibility. There are some of them that are still Aldot responsibility, so we're trying to parse through that and kind of come to an agreement saying, you know, these are Aldot responsibilities, they need to address it, and then if it's ours, we work through to figure out a budget and try to address them that way.
Yeah, because
So
I just
have
happened to
go
be
back
riding
specifically for those two corridors.
through there and I noticed going over 78 heading into, you know, past Birmingham Southern, like it's like pitch black dark there.
Mhm.
And then even leaving a neighborhood meeting from Sherman Heights, like all of those lights are completely out. Like on that bridge, I think just one side may be lit up and one side is completely out. The 78 is completely
So
out.
Birmingport one, but that's the bridge going over the old Inslee Iron Works facility. Okay, gotcha. I will bring that to our lighting team and have them go out and just do an assessment and kind of see what's going on. The Arkadelphia ones, I believe we replaced those recently, so they should be burning. So I'll have them follow up with that.
It wasn't too terribly long ago that we had a project agreement before us for, I want to say it was state road lighting maintenance.
So yes, there was, and that's part of what I need to check on too, because what we went into was an agreement that allowed Alabama Power operating under us to go and maintain state route lights that are ours. So it was a right-of-way agreement,
Okay,
if that makes sense. So we needed to set up a permission structure to where Alabama Power could go and repair the lights that we needed to maintain. So these should have fallen under that, and again, I'll have our lighting team follow up on those.
okay.
Thank you.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up under old business is, so as an aside, even though our committee hasn't really changed and we only added one word to the title of the committee, apparently we are a new committee now, and so for whatever reason, we don't have to approve minutes of the last meeting. So but any case, I wanted to bring up the minutes of the last meeting because we asked for a relative to traffic calming. The committee on October 23rd asked BDOT for an outline of where all the current projects are and an estimated timeline. So I realize you probably didn't come prepared with that information.
Did actually, partially.
Okay,
So
all right.
we have so many cases that, open, and a lot of them are just waiting to be evaluated. I didn't go bring the whole list of every case that we have. We're talking over 300 cases at this point. So I'm focusing mostly on the speed pushing cases that we kind of have that are up and moving right now, so we can kind of walk through those with where those are. So we completed two recently. One of them was on Mims Street Southwest. This is in the Weston Manor neighborhood, and the other was on 56th Street South in Crestwood. So both of those were recently installed. We do have several that are coming up, and as a reminder, our installation crew is the same as our striping crew, so we tend to do more striping in the warmer months and come back, and when it's cooler, do more traffic calming installations. So we're getting to ramp up traffic calming installations here in the cooler months, and then we'll transition back to striping as it gets warmer. So this first group, we've got 4 speed bumps, and this is not the cushions that we typically do. This is more like the bumps that we see for slower traffic that we've attempted to do downtown. 4 of those are planned for 9th Terrace North in Kingston. We have 12 cushions that are planned for Westchester Road and Apple Valley.
That's one of yours, right?
This
No?
is District 1.
Oh, Apple Valley, I'm sorry.
Yeah, these
Yeah.
are District 1, and again, these are the ones that are ready to be installed. They've already got funding dedicated to them. They've already been ordered, we're ready to start laying them down. Huffman Road in Huffman, 12 cushions, and Dublin Avenue in Eastlake, 4 cushions. Those are our tentative schedules to get those 4 done between December and February. So trying to get those 4 of them installed, given holidays, vacation time, and just availability of staff. The next 4 sets, which we're looking at sort of a tentative March to May timeframe, is 31st Street South in Highland Park, which was 6 cushions, Winona Oxmoor Road in Oxmoor Valley, which is 14 cushions, Martinwood Lane in Huffman, which were 12 cushions, and then Frida Jane Lane in Killa Springs with 12 cushions. I know that one's come up a couple of times about timing with that one. We were trying to, Frida Jane Lane it was evaluated for resurfacing, And so we were trying to time it to where we could get a resurfacing project in and then install our speed cushions. So that way we're not wasting labor to go and uninstall cushions that we just put down to pave a road and reinstall them. We were hoping to get that into this year's package, but we didn't have the signed petition and the funding dedicated prior to bidding out this package. The free Janley was not included in 23. We're working to include it in 24 so that we can time it with the speed cushions and again, save cost on labor, installation and reinstallation. So those are planned for that. As a side note, I will say that most of a lot of the cases that we have open are actually in District 1 currently, so there's a high percentage of District 1 that you'll see, especially early on, as we're addressing these cases, just to be upfront with that. And then we'll start to get into summer months where June, July, August, maybe even into September, just because, again, we're going to start focusing on striping versus installation. There's a cluster in the Glen Iris area on Green Springs, 16th Avenue, and 11th Place that we'll be putting in a bunch. They're all adjacent streets. And then Goss Street in Oxmoor Valley will be the next one that we're going to install. And that's sort of our tentative timeframe through the hot months. And then we'll kind of continue to design cases and program out. We have a couple that are approved and we're just waiting for funding from the neighborhoods. 10th Avenue South and Highland Park behind St. Vincent's. Price Drive and Dalton Drive in Roebuck, and then Sladen Avenue in Sherman Heights. So those are ones that they've gone through the whole process, they've been reviewed, they've been designed, they've been out, we've gone through the petition, gone through the neighborhood. We've gone to the neighborhood, we're waiting on the neighborhood to vote for funding for those three. And then we have two that we have gotten approved in designs, but we're waiting on quotes from our vendor before sending it to the neighborhood. And those are in Brookhurst Drive and Hoffman and Claremont Avenue in Forest Park. We have currently 17 cases that are awaiting the petition process to be returned to us. So a lot of times that's one of our bottlenecks, is getting the petition back from the applicant to make sure that everybody on the block agrees that they want the speed cushions installed on their street. So 17 cases there. And just for reference, we currently have 319 active cases in C-Click Fix tied to traffic calming. So we're working through this as fast as we can, but it's quite a task.
Yeah. So I believe in our last, or the current for fiscal year, VDOT requested and received $50,000 in departmental funds specifically for traffic calming. Does that sound familiar?
I believe we had 50,000 a year. I think we were up to 200,000 now. I remember we're using to order equipment and expand our equipment. Our most recent order was submitted in the summer. We are expecting to get that actually at the end of this week. So it can take us 3 to 4 months between placing an order before we actually get an order delivered to us. That's the reality of the logistics situation that we're in.
So the reason I brought that up is exactly that, knowing that there are, approximately 320 active cases out there, and probably new ones, being added all the time. I'm thinking about the upcoming budget cycle and potentially, having more resources directed towards that, because you've heard a lot from this committee that's an area of concern, and obviously the public is requesting this too. So we look forward to your feedback regarding how to appropriately scale up. Okay.
I got a few questions. I only heard one Place, Sladen Avenue,
For
Sherman
District
Heights.
9, for-
And I know we talked about Wilkerson and Tugler
Yes.
School, UW
Yes.
Clemens, Castleberry Lane, Grand Boulevard. So
Yes.
do these constituents need to do that process? Because it sounds like something is going on where it's a breakdown. Because I'm hearing, like Councilor Quinn saying, you know, you getting slammed with, you know, why? So it sounds like to me that the constituents are not following step 1, step 2, step 3 to get us there. So what I'm requesting from VDOT is to tell me where these constituents are, you know, with these, you know, with these requests, and what do I need to do as a counselor to get them to, because I'm hearing a lot of moving going on in these other areas. I ain't heard one street, one place in District 9.
Sure, so, I think that's a fair question, and part of this, you know, each case is unique, each case is complicated, and as somebody who's not in the day-to-day operations of traffic calming anymore, I don't think that I can speak to each individual case, and quite frankly, with 300 active cases, I think if we were gonna go each district, it's kind of complicated. I would recommend reaching out through government affairs to try to have a sit down with our current traffic calming team about, you know, kind of your district by district concern, because they're going to have the most up-to-date information about those exact locations that you're talking about Toggle and about, you know, Wilkerson, and kind of where are they falling. I'm sitting here, that's not something that I have full knowledge on to update you on currently. But I think that that's the best approach, because again, some of them may be, as I said, the notes I've got here about 17 cases that are awaiting petitions, some of them may be in that state. Some of them may be, you know, just haven't been evaluated yet based on or haven't been designed yet based on the capacity that we have within our staffing. So I think to really get into the weeds of something that is this large, it's one of our most active programs. I think would require some real one-on-one district council, and I think the best way to do that is through our government affairs team.
Okay, so the first step is 311, call this information into 311.
Yes,
correct?
absolutely. Please report any case that you have concern, please report that to 311. We are cross-referencing our active list with our 311 Sequent Fix account. And from there, the team will go through the process. They should be responding to that platform. We'll have to evaluate the speed conditions. We'll have to go through and provide some design solutions if warranted. And I think that's the other complicated part that I think is important in terms of traffic calming. And I know I've harped on this a lot. So the first is, we take these requests seriously. We understand that there's a concern. Not every case that comes to us when being evaluated will qualify for traffic calming improvements based on the standards that we've set. That's the first thing. The second thing is that not every traffic calming case that we do take on to evaluate and make design solutions, speed bumps or speed cushions may not be the appropriate solution in every context. I think we've gotten to the point now that we're doing traffic calming, there is a public perception that traffic calming equals speed cushions. And there's a lot of different solutions that we can go through that's contextually based. And so I think we need to talk about that too.
Okay, so report 311, second step, evaluation, and then how does the petition process come?
So if, once we get to an evaluation, so we'll go out and monitor speed, then there's a design process. And so they'll go out and they'll design streets. If it is determined that speed cushions, and this is specifically for speed cushions, are the course of action that's recommended, then we will send out a petition to the contact person, the person who's made the request. We'll get a petition, and that petition will include locations for the signatures of everybody on that block. We, as a matter of policy, to make sure that everybody on the block is in agreement that they want speed cushions, we set a standard of 2/3, that you need at least 2/3 of the residents on the block to sign in favor of the speed cushions, and then that's returned back to us. We work with, you know, obviously we understand that there are some blocks in the city where most of the houses are vacant, and we understand that there's, you know, maybe in the age post-COVID, people don't want to answer their front doors. So that there's nuance to it that we will work with the applicant, but as a general rule, we want 2/3 of people signing off. Once we get that comes back to us, we get final checks with police and fire to make sure that everybody from public safety standpoint is okay with the plan. And then we go to the neighborhood association to asking them to split the cost of the speed cushion with our department. When we were stepping this up, we started out offering the highest priorities at 50% split. Now with an increased budget, we do a 50-50 split with the neighborhoods every time there's speed cushions. That's the standard we go with, so that there is a partnership between the department and the neighborhoods in this infrastructure investment. And once that happens, then we start to put it in the queue based off of when we're available in terms of staffing to install the infrastructure.
Okay, so start with the 311, then you guys get those reports and go and eval.
Yep.
And whomever the person that called in, you will make that contact with that
Yes.
person, and then it flows from there.
That's right, and,
Okay.
and it's important that we have a local contact, one, for make sure we have somebody who's getting the petition,
Mhm.
but two, it's important to understand what's happening on the ground. You know, we want to really talk to the person and say, you know, what are you seeing, what time of day, you know, what direction are they coming from? It really helps us build that out, and then the staff should be in communication, and again, there's a lot of cases, so it may take some time to work through this whole process, and they may not get daily, weekly, monthly, so just be patient with us, feel free to follow up. But they should be in contact and kind of go through and say, okay, we're recommending this, or, you know, I'm sorry, we've evaluated it in your street, didn't qualify for traffic calming at this point in time, you know, that's how the process should be working.
Yeah, I just, you know, like Councilor Quinn said, you get slammed with these questions and you find yourself scrambling trying to answer these questions. So I just think of, you know, again, I'm gonna go back to, you know, what we talked about previously, like a one-page or fact sheet.
Yeah.
You know, where people can know, hey, it's gonna take 12 weeks for us to respond. It's gonna take, you know, this is not an easy process. So I think,
And-
you know, covering yourself and then covering us from getting bullets fired at us all the time.
Right, and we've been working on one pager, I don't know, again, I'd have to follow up with the traffic calming team to see where it is, but we've been working on one pager to get published, I'm not sure where that is at the moment, but you should be seeing that soon.
Yeah, I think it would be, well, we'll make this request through government affairs to have the traffic calming team come and present an overview to us. You know, I think it's appropriate that the individual counselors meet with them relative to specific projects, but having the big picture view, like, you know, a map of where all of these are for the whole city, and sort of, you know, knowing where those various projects are in a queue would be helpful for the council.
Yeah, I totally understand.
So, out of curiosity, in the cases where these traffic calming projects require some sort of consumable equipment, like I'm talking a speed bump or a cushion, you know, that's going to get run over and has some wear, what is the design life on those pieces of equipment?
Sitting here, I'm not sure that I could give you a specific number. I need to go back up and look at that information. What I will say is that part of the reason that we chose the speed cushion item that we have is for two reasons. First is cooperation with public safety. The speed cushion technology and the way that they're spaced allow emergency vehicles to move unimpeded, and so we're not impacting emergency response times. But the second reason is that the heavy-duty rubber speed cushions that we've been installing have proven to be pretty durable in other cities. We've modeled our program largely on the city of Memphis. Memphis is roughly about the same size, similar condition in terms of road network and use. And that was what Memphis went with. The asphalt, traditional asphalt speed bumps have turned out to be maintenance headaches. Not to mention the fact that we as a department, we don't have asphalt on hand, right? So we would either have to be sending that to Public Works and adding it to their laundry list of things that they need to fix, or we're contracting that out, and it just gets expensive. So from the long term, the long-term maintenance is that these rubber speed cushions are more durable, and we can fix them within house. So that gives us a lot of flexibility.
I'm just asking, because these will eventually need to be replaced. Like a stop sign can literally be at an intersection for many decades, and until somebody runs over it. But anyway, barring that, that's what I call a durable piece of equipment.
Right.
But when you've got those delineator posts or speed cushions, those things, require higher level of maintenance.
Sure.
So as we're, installing that kind of stuff, I think it's good to think, okay, how long before I have to replace this?
Yeah, makes sense.
So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, second, so we're adjourned. Thank you.